Chairman. Screen, let me ask you about the threats and the quantity of threats worldwide at this point. Give me a best guess here. Cyber criminals versus state actors versus folks that are just hacktivists that are trying to just cause mayhem in a certain area. Give me a percentage of the threat.
Well, it depends upon the sector being attacked. I don't mean to lawyer the answer. Sure. And one of the other issues you'll run into is there's not clear lines. A lot of times you'll have a nation state either acting as a so-called hacktivist or using hacktivists without knowledge. I would say that on the financial fraud, until this year, it was 99% criminals. This year was the first year we saw a major nation state engage in major bank fraud, the North Korea attacks on Bangladesh and elsewhere. So that the pure dollars is probably still low. As I said, the FBI put the BEC scam at $5 billion over 4 years. The Lazarus Group took, I believe, 81 million from Bangladesh. In the cyber espionage, purely guessing, guesstimate, I would say you're looking at the majority of it, if not more, be a nation state, or certainly appearing to come from nation state regions. The issue there you have sometimes, though, is something can look like a nation state, but you don't know whether someone's doing it as part of their day job or is taking the skills they learned in their day job and are using it at night and selling it on the black market. Was there a third component I missed? Or?
No, that's fine. That gives me a good balance there. How many of those are outside of the United States? When we deal with cyber criminals, obviously all nation states are outside the United States on it, but that the actual individual on the keyboard is outside the United States.
The percentage of the large criminal groups are typically based outside of the U.S. Their infrastructure, though, is global. So you'll see a lot of attacks. The actual launch point will come from inside the United States. I believe it's still the majority of the launch points come from an actual computer in the U.S., but the major gangs that we see, Bayrob that I mentioned, which was taken down in Romania, there was an Estonian group a few years ago. You see a lot, the overwhelming majority of that activity is not U.S.-based in terms of the top leadership at this point.
Okay, so let me broaden this out to a broader conversation as well. We have talked for years about having a cyber doctrine, a clear set of lines and boundaries where the United States would be able to announce worldwide, here are the boundaries for what we would accept or what we would not accept, and here are the responses that we would have. That has been discussed, has not been implemented. So my question of any of you is, what are the major features of that cyber doctrine that need to make sure that they are there from your perspective so we can actually work towards getting this implemented? And as we deal with nation states and we deal with international actors, what are the pressure points to be able to apply to people to be able to make sure there's actual enforcement? Anybody can jump in.
Well, I take a shot at this, Senator Lankford. In my time with the intelligence community, I found that the aspect that was lacking most was what I would refer to as options analysis, meaning that the intelligence community did then and does now quite well a review of the threat itself, and in fact, even within incidents, the ever-increasing ability to find attribution. And then we would write it all up as an incident report and hand it to the President of the United States, essentially saying, this is what happened. And what was clearly missing was, well, what can we do about it, right? What are the options? No one in the private sector ever would provide their boss with a copy of a problem without some reasonable basis of what the options are. But the intelligence community to this day is not set up with a group of career intelligence analysts across what I would call the DIME-LE spectrum, right? Diplomatic, information, military, economic, and law enforcement options, all elements of national power as can be provided by the government or the private sector or the government and private sector working in concert. So we don't know what works, and we don't know how that applies to specific criminal groups or specific nation states. As a result, to answer the question becomes hard because we haven't created the intelligence that would allow us to understand what our options are.
Well, correct, but when I move back from this, intelligence really provides us information for policymakers to be able to make the decisions. I think my question for you is, who is helping develop that list of options that you're articulating to say this is the boundary? It's one thing to be able to know where it's coming from. It's another one to be able to know what is a reasonable, effective deterrent.
Yeah, so clearly when it comes to critical infrastructure, there's been a large series of normative discussions internationally about taking down and destructive attacks on the energy grid, on the financial services grid, as these types of boundaries. But less understood than what the boundaries are what we would do about it. And I am not aware of groups that are exploring those types of options.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the next step. We need to have a comprehensive list of all cyber incidents, and that could be something the DHS or another organization could start. There's been talk, but we haven't actually done that, and that's what the problem. We don't have a basis of evidence. We do a lot of speculation, and we cannot make policy based on speculation. There's only one real line that we need to institute, and that line is violence. That line is destruction. Anything more than that will limit our own ability to respond and act. So that's a problem with setting up lines in cyberspace. But the clear thing is to stop any attack on critical infrastructure, anything that can cause death and destruction, which we haven't seen yet, and hopefully we never will see.
Yeah,
If I could add, sir, I think one important point, there's been a lot of literature written about could we have cyber norms, and an argument against it frequently is, well, we won't have compliance. How will we know? I think we need to have the conversation going in understanding that there will not be perfect compliance. It's impossible. You know, President Reagan said trust but verify in a different context. We need to understand that we need to do it as best we can. An 80% solution would be better than where we are today. So I think one of the things that has stopped a lot of the conversations is this debate over can we come up with perfect norms? And the answer is no, but that doesn't mean we don't try.
Right. Well, this continues to accelerate, and I know I'm running out of time. I'll honor that as well, but this continues to accelerate. I was with one of our universities doing research on cyber activity where they have developed a capability, which many others have, and they're studying the opportunities there of pulling up next to a vehicle, hacking into their Bluetooth from the vehicle and taking control of the vehicle. That is something that most Americans don't consider, that there's the possibility that someone could get close to them and to be able to do that, but they're trying to evaluate not only how easily can it be done, how many things can you operate once you're in the system. Whether it's a heart monitor that is connected, whether it's the Internet of Things, whether it's operating systems, whether it's a small manufacturer that bought a piece of equipment but then hasn't upgraded the software in it in years, and the vulnerabilities that are there, we are exceptionally vulnerable in our system. And I do agree that one of the prime things we have to move is an actual deterrence, that if someone reaches in and uses that, what is the consequence of it? And that helps provide us the next step, what needs to be done. And I would hope we could work with this administration to help actually get that closed, and so that worldwide there is a relationship internationally with if you hack into our systems and if you steal our information or if you destroy systems, here are the boundaries and here's what our response is. That I'd yield back.
So, Senator Lankford.